Welcome to Spark Sessions. I'm your host, Sonya Locke, and this girl is on fire. Today, I am joined by a powerhouse in aerospace and defense, a woman who has not only climbed the corporate ladder of a male-dominated industry, but shattered ceilings along the way. Ruth Garcia, who's Vice President of Marketing and Communication for AllClear Aerospace and Defense, and Vice President of Women in Defense for the Greater Los Angeles chapter. And her story is one of grit, grace, and global impact. From growing up in Saginaw, Michigan as a first-generation American to representing her company all over the globe, Ruth embodies leadership, resilience, and determination. Ruth, thank you so much for joining us today. And cheers and congratulations for all that you've achieved.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with talking about your roots, your kind of fire starter moment, so to speak.
Yes.
You grew up in Saginaw, Michigan, a daughter of immigrants from Central America. What was that like, and how did that kind of shape where you are today?
Well, it was a little bit different, I guess, just because, we weren't what you would call the norm, right? We always spoke Spanish. My parents were from, foreign countries, and we were trying to live in America where things were different. So my parents were really strict. They always had chores for us to do. And it was just a different dynamic. I mean, for us, it was normal, but for outsiders who would come over to our home and visit, or, if we would engage with them at outside or exterior places, it was just, we weren't normal, I guess, if you would say, just because we had different customs, different practices, different ways that we would do things. So yeah, it was just a little bit of a difference.
What words, both of your mother is from Costa Rica,
Yes.
right? And your father is from El Salvador.
Yes.
Very culturally rich countries.
Yes.
Tell me some about what your household was like, and some of those cultural differences, and how that kind of changed you and shaped you to who you are.
Well, we always spoke Spanish. Both of my parents were very hardworking, and from a very young age, they taught us responsibility, and we always had chores, and they taught us good work ethic. And I think just growing up in that environment and just applying that in school, and when we grew up in our teenage years and, looking for our first jobs, it kind of laid the groundwork for life, if you think about it. So from a very young age, when I started working, babysitting at age 12, and then my first real job where I was on someone's payroll, I was 15 working at McDonald's. It just taught you responsibility. You had to be on time, you had to work hard, no taking shortcuts for things. It just really prepared me for my future and where I am today. So it really all does start, at home at a very young age.
What about your friends? You said it was very different from the rest of your community. What was it, I guess, how did you navigate that differences to explain that, or where did you see your spot within your community at school?
Well, for starters, Spanish was my first language because my parents spoke to all of us in Spanish, the 3 kids. And, when you go to school, you eventually learn how to speak English just from engaging with other kids in the neighborhood and in school. And I to be honest, I don't even remember when I learned to speak English. But it was just different because we had different practices. I mean, kids would stay out late playing in the street. My parents were like, oh, you have to be home by a certain time, or when that street light comes on, you better be home. So we were really sheltered and protected and restricted with a lot of things that we could do that other kids weren't. So we kind of envied that they could stay out late or do certain things, have sleepovers. My mom would never, ever let us have sleepovers. She would always say, your friends can come and stay here and you can have sleepovers here. But that's just an example of, the sheltered, protected, overprotective parents, if you will.
And tell me about Saginaw. That's a very small town. It's not a huge town. And what was it like? And what was
It was very cold. Mid-Michigan in the winter is really brutal. But it was, there weren't that many Hispanics in Saginaw. I mean, there was a small community of Mexican Americans, but it really wasn't a big, large Latino community. Blue collar city. I mean, all of Michigan is, has a very heavy influence of the automotive industry. You had, back in the day, you had General Motors, you had Ford, you had Chrysler, the big three. So everyone that worked, the majority of the people that worked in Saginaw were blue collar workers. They worked for a company or an organization that either supported the big three or they were a branch or a division or the actual big three. So it was very, very blue collar, heavy, very, hardworking, if you will, industrial city, as was most of, that part of Michigan in general.
And then you said that there was a Hispanic community, but not necessarily your Hispanic community, being from Central America.
Yes. So I grew up with, friends in school and in the community that were predominantly Mexican, but you didn't really know, I didn't know anybody else that was from Central America. There weren't really that many Central or South American kids or people in our community, where whenever I would say, oh, we're from Central America, some people didn't identify with that. So I would try saying, well, we're from South America, even though we weren't, to see if they would resonate a little bit more with that. But it was just very Mexican heavy, a lot of Mexican restaurants and Mexican Americans. So we kind of, I guess, stuck out, if you would.
So did you want to leave Saginaw? And when did you break free?
I mean, I had a good childhood. I really, liked my upbringing in a small town versus growing up in a big city. Everybody knew each other. So that had its good and its bad moments. When you're a teenager, you don't want to see someone that goes and tells your mother, oh, I saw your daughter here or there. It was a good upbringing, but my parents were really strict, and they really, restricted me from doing a lot of things that my friends were doing. And if you wanted to go out, you had to come home super early. Come home early when the party isn't getting started until, after, when you have to be home. So I felt, I don't know, sometimes I felt kind of embarrassed that I had to tell my friends, oh, I have to go home, or I can't go, or I can't be social. And when that started to spill over into my high school years, when you're a senior in high school and you have all these fun activities and events and homecoming and parties and this and that, and I just felt, left out, if you will.
Mm-hmm. How do you think that shaped you as far as what your career ambitions were, or what your, I guess, life ambitions, do you think?
It made me want to break free of that. It made me want to just hurry up and grow up and be on my own so I could make my own decisions, which is partly why I left home so early.
How old were you when you left home?
I left home at 18.
Oh, wow. That's very bold.
Yes.
Very bold.
I was eager to just get out.
And where did you go? What was your first step leaving that nest?
So I graduated high school when I was 18. And then I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I was approached by a trade school where you can go and study to have a career in the travel industry. And I was always fascinated by airplanes and loved aviation and travel, and that was very appealing to me. So it was like a 6-month program. The school was based in Minneapolis, and I really wanted to go. So I went home and I told my parents about it. A couple of representatives, recruiters from the school came, sat down with my parents, told them the cost, and my dad was like, but I really wanted to do it. And I went. My parents drove me to Minneapolis. I spent some time there. At the school, I completed the program. And from then we had recruiters come, to interview students, to see, companies, rental car companies, airlines, hotels, any travel related industry company. and I interviewed with a call center for Delta Airlines vacation desk, and they approached me about an opportunity to move to Fort Lauderdale. And all I was thinking about was, wow, an opportunity in Fort Lauderdale, that means moving away, moving out of the house. And I accepted the opportunity. I'll never forget. It was back in 1987. It was making $5.50 an hour.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine moving into Miami right now making $5.50 an hour?
No. And I just remember my dad saying, "How are you going to make it? Are you sure? Let's crunch the numbers." And I mean, they really wanted me to be okay, but I was really set on just leaving and being on my own and establishing myself. And not being in Saginaw, because I didn't really see that much opportunity there for me. I just felt like, I don't know, I just felt like I could do so much more if I left.
So you kind of had the travel bug for the very early start.
I did. And I think that came from my father. My father really instilled the value of travel and exploring and seeing the world, because from a very young age, our whole family would go to both Costa Rica and El Salvador every other year for about 2 to 3 weeks. We take our family vacations. So we were flying on airplanes at a very young age, and, exploring different cultures, our roots, our, parents' homeland, and just interacting with, different kids in the neighborhoods where my cousins and my aunts and uncles lived. So we were exposed at a very young age to international culture, and we liked it, and we always went. So I guess going back to Saginaw, you look at where you had just been, and you got a taste of what it's like to be in other parts of the world, if you will, and, it just kind of, oh, I'm going back to Saginaw. There's got to be more out there. So it was just an eye-opening experience.
And also probably a little bit warmer than both Minneapolis and Saginaw, Michigan.
Yes, yes, a lot. It was nice. It was great. Had great relationship with our family and our cousins, and we would, see other sides of their culture and their, communities, which was very eye-opening.
So with Saginaw being very much in the automotive industry, was your father and mother, were they also in the industry as well, or what did they do?
My father was. He worked for Chevrolet. He worked for the metal casting plant, Gray Iron, in Saginaw. So, he was a blue-collar worker. He was an inspector at the plant. And my mother was a homemaker, so she was always home. Always, we'd come home from school at 3. She always had snacks for us to hold us over until dinner. So she was always there. She was always present. She was a great homemaker, very, tidy, always kept the house up, immaculate, gave us all of our chores to do when we came home from school. So we came from a very structured upbringing. And, as much as I admired, my dad working so hard, trying to give us the most that he could on his, salary, and having my mom, being able to be at home for us during those important years when, we're in school age and coming home from school. And I always wanted more than that. I didn't want to be a homemaker. I always wanted to do something more, be something bigger, and try to make the most out of my life, using that as a foundation for the rest of my life, basically.
So you've had a credible trajectory in the aerospace industry, but how did that get started? You're in Fort Lauderdale, working for Delta. How did you get your way started?
So unfortunately, I was fired from that job. I'm too embarrassed to say the reason why. Nothing illegal.
Well, you were in Fort Lauderdale and you were 19. That had to be a wonderful time of your life.
It was. I was just interested I was out of the house. I wanted to go out with my friends. I wanted to go dancing and clubbing, and I was free. I felt so liberated from my parents' stronghold. I wanted to have fun, and I did. So that came with some irresponsible moments. So I deserved to lose my job. So I went out looking for another job, learning what I had learned from that whole experience. So I applied, I don't even remember how at the time, I just applied for a job I saw an opening for an aviation aerospace company. And I was like, wow, that sounds really cool. So the president of this company was looking for an executive assistant, and I interviewed for the position. He was a very amazing Argentinian man. So we connected, because we were both Hispanic and we spoke Spanish. And he ended up choosing someone who was much older than me and had more experience. I mean, I was 21. What did I know about being an executive assistant? So he hired her, and he personally called me to tell me he had selected somebody else. And I really appreciated that, personal touch for rejection. But he did tell me if anything came up within his organization that he would call me, because he thought I was amazing and he thought I had a lot to offer. So I thought, yeah, whatever. It's just textbook, rejection delivery. So he ended up calling me 6 months later and said he had a position open for a sales assistant if I was interested. And I was like, yes. So I jumped at the opportunity, and then I ended up being with that company for 12 years. And internally, I just grew from sales assistant to, sales representative to sales manager. And I just learned the industry, the aftermarket in aerospace, distribution and parts distribution and repairs. And I just grew. I networked a lot. I met a lot of contacts. I developed great relationships with customers who were airline supply chain personnel and suppliers. And it's just a small niche industry to this day where you just know a lot of people. So yeah, that was basically where everything started. And I did everything from, checking the fax machine back then for quotes on parts. And whenever I wasn't busy, the general manager said, hey, I need you to go out in the warehouse and help the guys out there and sweep the floor. And I'm like, it's funny. He said, no, I'm serious. I was like, wait, I'm dressed nice. I look nice. What do you mean sweep the floor? You had to do what was asked of you to, pitch in and be a good, team member. So yeah, I would have to sweep the warehouse floors when I wasn't busy.
In your sales, I mean, you're in aerospace, so it's not like you're selling, a dress or a pair of shoes.
No, you're selling aircraft parts, literally.
Exactly.
Yes.
To mostly large airlines and things like that.
Airlines, other operators of aircraft, brokers, sending parts out for repair. It's just a different industry, and I found it fascinating.
So you're already on your way. You're Ascent, I would say, in the aerospace industry.
Yes.
12 years, you'd moved up to sales manager. What after that? Where did you go next?
Then I went to go work for Chilean airline.
Okay.
And that came with, more growth and development in aircraft maintenance, supply chain management. So it was just a whole other dynamic, a lot of responsibility. That was probably the hardest job I ever had, because you also had to be on call 24 hours a day, 24/7. You had shifts that you would have to go around with the cell phone and take care of any urgent, after-hour requests. If an aircraft is grounded, you have to find a part, find a way to get it to that destination. It could be at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday night, or it could be 2 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. You have to figure out how to make it happen and get that aircraft back operating. So it was challenging. It was very rewarding. I learned so much. It was probably one of my favorite jobs. And it also allowed me to grow from a cultural perspective, because I traveled a lot to Chile, which I loved, one of my favorite countries. And I would travel there a lot and just learn a lot about the culture and the people and the dynamics. And it was just so wonderful. And I just did a lot of, because I worked for an airline, I was able to do a lot of recreational traveling on my own. to on vacation and just, other places of interest to me at the time. So, but it was tough. It was tough work.
It sounds like it was 24/7 most of the time.
It was. It was. I mean, it was on a rotation. It was 24/7, every third week. So you did get a break in between, but it was hard. But it really, it taught me a lot. It allowed me to grow. I built a whole new network of contacts, if you will, in the industry, because now I'm on the buying end. So you have a lot of vendors and people wanting to get to know you because they want your business. So it's a whole other dynamic from where I had come from, where I was working for 12 years. So
my last conversations that I had, we were talking with women from different generations, and without giving away your age, I assume that you're the same generation as me.
yes,
And one of the things that we talked about was the mommy track.
yes,
And there really was this clear, I mean, you, as clearly told by your story, you kind of had this belief you could be anything.
yes,
You could do anything.
yes,
But women in our 30s, it was the mommy track of you had to choose between career succession and a more traditional role of mother.
yes.
So did you feel that way in your industry and where you were at, that you kind of had that choice of one or the other? And what did you choose?
So I was married, and I never really had a moment in my life where I felt, let me take a break, let me think about building a family and having kids. I loved my job. I loved working. I loved what I was doing. I was good at it. I was passionate about it. I enjoyed it. I liked the perks that came with the job. I liked the pay. It was great. And I guess I never really felt comfortable in my marriage, or that I was in a good place in my marriage where I wanted to have kids. I felt like having children would hold me back from growing even more. So it wasn't ever a priority for me. I never really put that much importance on it. I wanted to focus more on my career. So it was never something that I felt I had to do. It was something on my checklist, or I never felt like, oh my God, if I don't have kids, I'm going to feel less of a woman, or I'm going to feel unfulfilled in life. I mean, to this day, I don't regret not having kids. I don't feel like I was missing out on something because I didn't have kids. I love kids. I have amazing nephews and an incredible niece, and that kind of let me experience a maternal role, if you will, in the family. But I never really felt like, oh my God, I'm missing out on life because I never had kids. And I have a lot of friends that my age or slightly younger that don't have children and don't want to have children. So I think women are really taking charge of their life and just, doing what they want to do. And if it means not having children, it's not having children.
So let's talk about back to your career. So now you are in a very fulfilling role.
Yes.
But where was your next step? Did you always find that you had another rung to climb in your industry? And where'd you move from there?
Yeah, there's always room for growth, and you never want to stop climbing that corporate ladder, if you will. So after my tenure at the airline, it was important for me to be closer to my family. I was living in Miami at the time, so I wanted to move to Atlanta. I had, a young niece and nephews, and whenever I would come visit in Atlanta and I would leave, they would always cry and be depressed. And my sister would say to me, you have to stop doing this to my kids. They're so depressed when you leave and they're not happy. So it just drove me to want to be closer to them. So I explored other opportunities that would get me out of Miami and allow me to live in Atlanta and work in Atlanta to be closer to my family. And I don't regret that move for a second. It was the best thing I could have done at the time.
So that next move that you
Yes.
made to come back into Atlanta,
Yes.
what was that role, and what did you have to do different to get that position?
So a friend of mine recruited me to go work at the company that he was at. And luckily it was a, remote position where I could work from home because it did require a lot of travel. It was a regional sales manager for a large avionics manufacturer. And it was great because I traveled for work. I was able to still, be at home and spend time with my family, close proximity to my family. But the position did require you to have a 4-year degree, and I didn't have a 4-year degree. So they took a chance on me because I came highly recommended from a colleague, another employee at the company. And they hired me because of what I knew and my experience and my contacts. So I had to make the commitment to go back to school. So that kind of led to my trajectory of going back to school in my 40s, which was not the norm, but it was a good experience, and I'm glad I did it.
No, that's hard. I mean,
Yes,
that's
it is
hard to
hard.
take that unconventional.
It is.
I mean, you were probably at the top of your career, you were making good
Yes.
money, and then now
Yes.
it's like, okay, wait a minute, there's
Right.
something else you need to do,
Right. And
and
whenever I
going
was
back.
with my team, they would go out to dinners and have fun and do fun things and invite me. And I had to stay in my hotel room and write papers and study. And, the rest is history.
But I think that's inspiring. It's also
It
about
is.
involving,
Yes.
that we don't stop our growth. And
Right.
then, and
Right.
you had the courage to go back, and
Right.
that's a hard step to take
Right.
as well,
Right.
and to continue to evolve. And I think that that's probably where you got to where you're at today, is that
Yes.
continuous determination.
Yes, and it was a commitment. It was a challenge. It was very hard. It was a lot of sacrifice. It was a lot of work because you're working a full-time job and you're also applying yourself to your studies. I did very well in all my subjects because I knew it. I had already experienced it, or what I was learning about in textbooks or assignments or papers. I already had experienced that in real life. So and I'll never forget, I was so appreciative to a very good friend and a colleague in the industry, that she's the one who really pushed me to go back to school so I could really get to that next level, because without your education, you're not going to get that second look or that second opportunity.
Well, I congratulate you again for all of
Thank
your
you.
accomplishments and for going back and doing that. That's a brave
Yes,
move as well.
yes, yes.
So now to the burning question. You work in aerospace and defense. You are a VP, a global leader, and it is still a very male-dominated industry. So I want to talk to you about walking into a room and having a voice in these rooms when no one else looks like you. And I want to tell you some of the statistics because they just really blow me away. So with aerospace and defense, while women make up 50% of the workforce in most other industries, it is still only 25%. And that figure has only grown by 1% in the last 10 years. And on top of that, only 19% of those are in any role in executive management. And then you add the fact that you're Latina. There's only 2% Latina in the entire workforce in aerospace and defense. So with that being said, you're not just walking into a room. You are making history when you walk into a room. So how do you lead when you're the only one that looks like you in that room?
With confidence. And earlier in my career, when I had transitioned to a new role that another friend had recruited me, a close friend had recruited me into, I was a little apprehensive and hesitant in accepting the position and accepting the role, because I felt like I was biting off more than I could chew. I felt like, maybe, am I getting myself into, a lot, am I getting in over my head? Is it, too much for me? Am I going to be able to handle it? Am I going to disappoint? I don't want to be a failure. And he just sat with me and was very, direct, and said to me, I have all the confidence in you, all the confidence in the world that you can do this. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to have the same confidence that I have in you, in yourself. And, those words really, just stayed with me throughout the rest of my career. And he was really the one who made me have the confidence and feel reassured that I could do anything that I set my mind to. I didn't have to feel intimidated just because, all of my other team members are men, because it can be intimidating. You can think, wow, am I doing the right thing? Can I do this? Am I just as good as they are? So you just have to get that out of your head, put it in the back of your mind, and just really move forward and just have the confidence that you can do it. You can do anything.
So now you are in that seat at the table amongst all these men, I'm assuming. How would your team and your peers describe your leadership style? And do you ever feel like it's been misunderstood?
Sometimes, because I can be very direct. Sometimes I have no filter. I try to be very transparent, very stern, very forward thinking, and just say what's on my mind. And sometimes it's not always, the best approach, especially for a woman. I feel that if men take that approach, they're commended as being strong leaders and way to go. And yes, you're standing up. But women, maybe we're looked at as being bitchy but you have to do it in order to, be able to keep up with, I guess, the status quo or whatever the standard is for whatever it is that you're dealing with at the moment.
And that's not an unusual statistic. I actually wrote an article about it, and 68% of high performing women were given negative performance reviews compared to 2% of men. And most of those performance reviews were personality based. The being too aggressive, the being, it's true.
It's mind-blowing, actually.
So how do we change that stereotype? How do we assert ourselves without being called the B word?
Right.
Right?
Continue doing it, because there has to come a point where, you just break that mold, and those thoughts are not there anymore, or you just have to continue to be assertive and not give in to what others think of you, or that, how can I say it, you give in to that perception, right? Because then you're conceding, you're giving up, and we have to continue moving forward, being stern, being direct, being strong, powerful women, just keeping up with the men, because it's in actuality, that's what we're doing. We're trying to keep up and be viewed as equal, right? And unfortunately, we're not viewed as equal, but we just have to keep moving ahead. And for the generations behind us, we have to pave that way, and we're going to have to pay the price in some way or another for that. So,
have you ever heard of the silence tax, where you've had to shut off parts of your personality to kind of make it in a male-dominated world, or shut off parts of your integrity? I mean, you come from a very rich cultural background. You talk about work ethic. You talk about determination.
Yes.
Your ambition and your passion are infectious.
Right.
But have you ever felt like you've had to shut off parts of yourself in order to make by?
Sometimes, yes, because I'm very passionate when I believe in something. And, sometimes you have to think twice about, what am I going to say? How is it going to be perceived, especially in a male-dominated industry of your peers? You want to be respected. You want to be valued. You want to be thought of as a positive, influential role model or person, and you never know how the other person is thinking. So, sometimes you have to think about that, but you can't let it take over your main way of being, if you will, the stern, direct, transparent approach. So it's almost like it's a game that you have to play the right cards, right?
Have you ever had to prove yourself differently from your peers, or had someone not work with you necessarily and give you the respect as the leader that you are, because you are female?
Yes. And it's disappointing, because you feel like you work so hard and you just give so much into what you're doing, whether it's a project or just, your day-to-day activities. And sometimes you do feel where you're unappreciated or not respected as, your male counterpart. And it's just, you just have to roll with the punches and just stay strong and confident and just keep powering through.
So what about the next generation? How are we making it better for the next generation to come up in these industries and building rungs for them? We talked about women in defense.
Yes.
Tell me some of the work that you guys do to encourage the next generation to come into your industry and change those statistics.
Right. So Women in Defense is a great organization. It's an affiliate of NDIA, and there's different chapters of Women in Defense across the country. And what our main mission is just to promote women in the national security sector and just encourage them to grow and learn and lead and move ahead in this male-dominated industry for ultimate success.
And I saw you guys also give scholarships because, there's also a lack of diversity in STEM.
Yes.
A large lack of diversity, not only in women, but also Latina. Right. Getting them more involved to break into this industry.
Right. So that's great that we participate in that, and we do give scholarships for students in the STEM sector. So hopefully that will help build the future of future engineers and leaders in aerospace and defense.
I think that everything you said is really an inspiration to so many other women that are, thinking that there is a ceiling, that there's nowhere that they can go into these industries, and also working with, like I said, it was also a male in your industry that gave you that power and that
Yes.
empowerment to say,
Yes.
you are right, you do belong here,
Yes.
you deserve this seat, now own it.
Right.
Right?
Right. So it's great, especially when you have those, male mentors and leaders that just reinforce you and give you that extra push that, yes, you can do this. And there's so many of them. And I've had several male mentors and leader figures, if you will, that really made me have the confidence and believe in myself that I could get to that next level, especially with my recent, or not so recent, but my promotion that took me to the vice president level. He had the confidence and the belief in me that he felt I deserved this opportunity. Why wasn't I in this leadership position earlier on in my career with everything that I had accomplished and have experienced and been through, and the way I lead through, my day-to-day work and activities.
Ruth, you're paving the way for so many more generations to come. And I'm going to bring you to a signature spark session moment that I ask everyone is, when did your passion meet your purpose?
I would say when I had my first job in aerospace, it was just such a defining moment for me because I was so excited to be working in an industry that I found to be so fascinated. And then once I was in the role and I grew and I developed in the role, I was there for 12 years and I just knew this is what I'm going to do forever. I love it. I love what I do. I love this industry. The connections I'm making, the networking, the people I meet along the way, the work, I loved it. I really liked going to work. So that for me was the defining moment for where I am today. And I guess, looking back and looking at what I'm doing now, I want to make a difference. I want to be a role model and I want to be able to mentor the next wave of women in especially aerospace and defense, that the sky's the limit. There's nothing or nobody that can hold you back, regardless of what the status quo is or what people think the norm is. That there's nothing anybody can say, there's nothing anybody can do that can hold you back, and not to be scared like I was in a lot of moments and doubting myself. Can I do this? Am I the right person for this? And not feeling intimidated by men that are in similar positions as you, and just getting intimidated by what they do, and am I the right person for this just because I'm a woman, when deep down inside I know I'm doing a better job than they are, or I have what it takes and I can do this.
And that's a great purpose to have. And I think that that is what you are doing, is not only trailblazing your way, but bringing others up behind you and showing them that it is not impossible. You can do it. You know, it just takes your passion.
Right.
It takes your dedication.
Yes, you have to have passion, conviction, determination, and I think just have the confidence and just not feel intimidated by anyone, especially, a male. So,
Yes, you have to sometimes just do it, right?
Right.
Whether it's right or wrong, you have to do it and you have to take that chance. So you travel a lot for business and for pleasure.
yes.
Paris, London, Abu Dhabi, Singapore. I mean, the world is literally your office, right? And that's not just travel, it's perspective. What is it like navigating all these international places? What are some of the lessons that you've learned or the perspectives that you've gained?
You just learn to have respect for other cultures. I think you're more open-minded and objective to world issues and current events, and you tend to understand them a little bit more because you've been to other countries and you've experienced cultures and how people live and their social issues versus someone who's never left the United States, right? You just have a different perspective, a different respect and understanding for different cultures.
Speaking Spanish as your first language,
Yes.
how has that helped you navigate these world travels? And, has it made a difference as far as bringing you closer to some of these places that you've gone to?
Sometimes, yes, especially traveling to Europe. The thing about Europe is that it's about the size of the United States almost, and you have all these different countries within close proximity of each other, and they all speak completely different languages. So it's not unusual for Europeans to speak, their native language and then 2 or 3 different languages. So navigating in Europe either on English or Spanish does have a little bit more of an advantage than going in with, someone going that just speaks English. But it is a challenge when you go to, other countries in Asia or in the Middle East where the languages are completely different. But, English is the international language. So you will always run into somebody and encounter somebody that speaks English, especially in hotels and tourist destinations. They try to make it easier for, tourism purposes.
Was there any lessons that you learned with traveling to, the Middle East and Asia as a woman in business? Has there been any differences or things that you had to learn?
Yes. So you have to remember that in some countries you have completely different cultures. For example, in the Middle East, they're majority Muslim. And, I had an experience. It was a little bit awkward where I was at a trade show, and years ago I went to go shake a gentleman's hand and he wouldn't shake my hand, and I thought I did something wrong. But in their culture, depending on their, I guess, the level of their religion, if you will, they can't or won't shake a woman's hand if they're married or for whatever reason. So I quickly learned not to extend your hand when you meet somebody unless they extend their hand first. So there's little things like that in different cultures that you just have to be cognizant of and just be on the lookout for.
What's one of your favorite destinations that you've been to, either professionally or business-wise?
So my favorite city in the world is Paris. I just love everything about it. The culture, the food, the architecture, the history, the fashion. It's just such a fabulous place. And also Tokyo, Japan. I was so impressed because they're so mindful of others, and it's such a kind, caring, respectful, honorable culture. And one of my closest friends is Japanese, so I learn a lot about the culture through him. And it's fascinating. I just was so impressed, and I loved it. I'm so eager to go back soon.
It is. It's beautiful country. It's so organized too. Like, oh,
Clean, organized, just everything is so structured. And I'm a very structured, clean, organized person, so that resonates well with me.
what else did you learn from, from not only your own cultural background, but from traveling to all these places that has helped you in your career or help you, I guess, pass on to the next generation, your mentoring?
You just have to be open-minded about things, I think, in other cultures, that not everybody believes what you believe. Not everybody was, raised how we were raised in America. I know everybody wants to come to America. I don't know if that's so much true anymore. But you just have to be open-minded and just be objective and just really just respect other cultures and other people and their beliefs, and not be eager to criticize or make judgment.
So aside from travel, what else fans the flames? What keeps your fire burning, Ruth?
I guess, just continuing to grow and continuing to learn. Yes, I am in, a senior leadership position, but you never stop learning. There's always more room for growth. I love working in a team environment. I love contributing. I like making a difference. I love helping. I love being creative and giving ideas and contributing to projects and a team environment and large, impactful projects, as well as passing along that knowledge and experience to the next generation and lessons learned, if you will, so that they can grow and learn from our mistakes, right? The way we, pave the way forward.
I think that impact is so important, how passing it forward to the next generation and rewarding. Like, I think that to me is the most rewarding thing I feel is when I see someone younger and like coming into their own power.
Right.
And seeking that advice from us and, fanning their flames, I guess is what I would say.
Absolutely. Yes.
So before we start wrapping up, here's the part that is, I think, the most important part of Spark Sessions. And you've already talked so much about this being your purpose as well, is a segment we call Passing the Torch. So I'd like to talk to you about what advice you have to give to maybe the younger you or one of the young women in your companies, or what advice would you give to this next generation that will help inspire them to move forward?
I guess to be confident and don't let anybody intimidate you, and don't be afraid to push buttons and ask questions, even if it's something that seems out of the norm, or don't be nervous about what are other people going to think, because that's how we're going to grow. That's how we're going to get to the next level. It's okay to challenge and ask questions, and no question is a dumb question, but that's how they're going to make a change and really pave the future.
So speaking of next generation, let's make this moment a little bit more real. Sophia, can you please come out here and let's talk to Sophia.
What a surprise.
And for those of you just tuning in, this is Miss Sophia Sasso. She is the Executive Communications Specialist at EDS, and she is also the Executive Producer of Spark Sessions. And also, she happens to be Ruth's niece. So all of our talk of mentorship, I thought we could bring this full circle and ask you, what advice have you given hope sticks with her?
To never give up and to always go for your dreams, and there's no idea or no pursuit that's unattainable, and just to be confident and do whatever it takes to get to the next level.
And Sophia is well on the way of becoming the next great VP of Marketing and Communication, or wherever the world will take her. So tell me, Sophia, what are, having Ruth as your mentor and as your aunt, what are some of the life lessons that you learned and that you take with you every day on your journey as you're paving your way?
Gosh, I mean, she literally gives me so much advice. I can't count on, two hands how many times I've called her for advice, that whether it be with work and wanting to grow in my career or just personal. I mean, she's literally my second mom, so she's taught me so much through all stages of my life. But I think when it comes to growing in my career and also just as a person, I remember this one specific time we were getting in an elevator, and she lives in LA, so we were just in LA, and I was actually doing an internship for her. And I think overall I'm a big people pleaser. I love, to see the other people around me happy. I want to go above and beyond, but I think sometimes my kindness can be taken for weakness. And she kind of pointed that out, and she said, well, I think you're too nice, because I know you guys were talking about her leadership style, and she mentioned she's very direct and can sometimes be stern, and it can kind of come off as, aggressive, but I really look up to that because I'm just a yes man sometimes. I love to, please people, and I think her pointing that out gave me the confidence to stand up, and not in a disrespectful way, but voice my opinion, even if I think it maybe not be taken in the right way, but just to kind of, stand strong in my beliefs and to speak up in rooms where I think, I may not have a voice, but she encourages me and inspires me every day to take that step. So that's a piece of advice that'll really stick with me.
Yeah, and that comes with accountability. I hold myself accountable to the very highest level. I'm my biggest critic. I'm a perfectionist with a lot of things, but just because I like to see things done right and to see them done to the highest standards, whatever the project is. And I want to hold others accountable to the same level, the same standards. And that's just something I think she needs to learn, is to hold people accountable. Don't just take whatever you're being told or whatever situation you're presented with. It's okay to challenge. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to push back. It's not going to make you a mean girl or a mean person, but it's just a way of growing and making your own change, if you will, in little things.
Right. And even her speaking about little things, I mean, at the nail salon, I stress out, or at the hair salon, if I could, be getting my nails done and absolutely hate it, but I'm, telling the tech or whatever, oh, I love it, they're my favorite nails I've ever had in my life. But I think that's something that'll come with growing, older and having experiences, and I'm working on it. And she's a great mentor in all areas of life. But I think that piece of advice really sticks with me, and I try to embody that every day. So
What are some of the other things? I mean, you are a role model. I mean, like, I can tell your conviction on this is how you do it, and I am going to do it right, and that work ethic. What has that meant, having an aunt like that? That you've seen climb the corporate ladder. You've seen her go through so many tribulations to get to where she's at.
absolutely.
How did that shape you?
Well, I think it's amazing having her as a role model, because she has been so successful and so driven in her career. So it's been another perspective for me, because my mom did have the dream of wanting to be a mother, and as do I. I always, as a child, I had baby dolls with me everywhere I went. I was, I've always wanted to be a mom, and I still have that drive. And I, for the longest time, wanted to solely be a mom, wanted to be a stay-at-home wife, stay-at-home mom, make bread, take the kids to school. And I thought that would be so fulfilling, and I still think so. But now that I've gotten further into my career, and I've had you as a separate perspective, and you as well, I mean, you're an amazing mentor, and I look up to both of you so much. But I think now I kind of realize I can do both.
Yes.
You've chosen not to take that path and really focus on your career, and you've been able to do both. And I have my mom as an amazing role model of being an incredible, homemaker. So I think I've had all of these perspectives, and I can make it my own. And I realize that I don't have to be one thing or fit into one mold, but I have, an incredible role model like you. And I think just choosing to make my own path, and yeah, that's it.
Doing her.
I think that's, to me, like what Spark Sessions is all about, is empowering people to own your own path.
Right.
right? There's no right and wrong on many of these things. It's just doing it the best you can.
Right. And she has a full menu. She has mentors and, her own experiences that she can, learn from and grow and decide which path she wants to take. And maybe it's a little bit from what each of us provide her as a mentor that fits her style, her likings, her future, her desires for growth and development, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I know Sophia thanks you, and I thank you very much for all of your inspiration that you give to, you just don't stop. I can tell.
No,
Sometimes
can't
she needs
stop,
to.
won't stop. I know, and I need to, but it's just in my DNA. It's just part of my work ethic, both in my personal life and in my professional life.
But that's your passion. That's your purpose.
It is.
And your purpose is definitely shining through, I believe.
Thank you. I'm so lucky to have both of you, and thank you for having me on this
Yes,
segment.
thank you
I'm
for having
honored.
us.
Well, you do a wonderful job. Everything here it would only be here if it was your vision. That you're she's also extremely meticulous. Like
Yes.
nothing is in the wrong space. It's all like looks, right frame. And yes, very, very good at what she does and very much like driven.
Well, good. Good.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so now it's going to be a little fun session.
Okay.
And we're going to call this the fire round, okay? Easy questions. You can't get them wrong. Ready?
Yes.
Go-to travel ritual.
Drink lots of water and no makeup.
Your leadership superpower.
Transparency.
Coffee, tea, or cocktails.
Coffee.
Dream vacation, not work related.
Traveling to Switzerland.
And boldest move you've ever made.
Leaving my house at 18.
Very good. Okay, Ruth, last question.
Yes.
What is that spark that keeps you going? That thing that puts a smile on your face and just makes you so happy?
Probably talking to my mom every day. Sometimes we'll talk once a day. Sometimes we'll talk 4 or 5 times a day. I ask her any little question, any piece of advice. How do I make this? What should I do about this? Do you like this? And it's just something it's meaningful to me. It's just having those daily conversations with her. She was such a role model, to me and part of who I am today, just because of her rigidness and her being so strict. And it's just a big part of me, a big part of my upbringing.
So beautiful. It is actually really funny because we all turn into our mothers, and like as we come full circle, that one thing at 16 where we're like,
Yes.
we come back.
Exactly. We crave it. Yeah. We want it. We need it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for today and for your insight. I truly want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm so very proud of you.
Thank you so
because I can tell just everything that you've done and your purity of purpose and how you've lived your life. And I mean, you're a courageous woman, you're a bold woman, you're a driven woman. And I want to thank you for all of your insights.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been an honor.
And I am sure you have inspired many others that know now that they can go in there and it doesn't matter. Just sit next to a general, they're going to own their seat and they're going to take that seat to the table.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Spark Sessions with Sonya Locke. Until next time, keep the fire burning.